Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Chrome Apps Office Hours. We've got joining us today, we've got Joe Marini. Joe, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Pete. Hi, I'm Joe Marini. I am a developer advocate here on the Chrome team, and I work on Chrome apps.
Sweet. And I'm Pete LePage. So today we're going to be talking about the new Alarms API, which allows you to create specific events that fire at specific, or create events that fire at specific times or on regular intervals. With any kind of native or installed app, one of the things you might want to do is have regular events that go pull for data, or maybe you're writing something like an alarm clock and you want to have the application notify the user of a specific thing that happened, or that it's time to get up and it's time to do something. So with the Alarms API, you can actually go and do that. You can much more easily say, hey, even though my application is not running right now, I want to go and fire a specific event and have something happen with that event. So it's a pretty cool API, pretty useful to use, and it's really, really simple. Normally our shows run about 30 minutes. I think today we may actually even finish up in about 15 minutes because this is a really simple API. Why don't we go ahead and jump in, and we'll take a look at some of how the API works. So let me just open these guys up here so that we can get this going, and we'll have a look here. So there's a relatively easy way of creating an alarm. It's chrome.alarms.create, and you give it a name, which is a string, and an alarm info, which is an object. So the string can be anything. You just use that to identify what the alarm is, and then the alarm info has the details about how the alarm gets fired. So there's a couple of things that you can put in here. So first thing you could have is when. So that's a specific time you want the alarm to fire. So if you wanted to fire at, say, now plus 30 minutes, you'd say now, date.now times 60 seconds times 1,000 times 30. So that gives you the 30 minutes, because it gives that time in number of milliseconds past the epoch. The other option is you can say delay in minutes, which provides the, hey, I want to fire in 30 minutes, or I want to fire in 45 minutes. So that's just a double. If you want a specific, hey, just hang out for a certain amount of time and then fire this guy off, you can use delay in minutes. And then finally, period in minutes is another one that says, hey, I want you to refire this event every so often. So however many minutes you want it to refire in. Now, all three of those are optional, but realistically you need at least one of them provided. So you need either to provide the when, or the delay, or period. You can also do like two of them, so that you could say when plus period, or delay in minutes plus period. So you could say, hey, I want you to fire this event in 30 minutes, and then wait 30 minutes and fire it again, and fire it again, and fire it again. So that way you can have that recurring, hey, go check to see if there's any new data, or maybe you want to go and do something else with that. So like I said, they're all optional, but you should fire at least one. If you don't apply anything, the alarm just fires right away, which is kind of pointless. And then of course you need to listen for the event. With the Alarms API, it fires an event when the alarm fires. That was repeating myself just a little bit, but that's okay. And so you just say chrome.alarms.onAlarm, add event, and then the function name that you want to do. And of course you can do an inline function. You'll see that in a sec when we take a look at the demo. And it passes one parameter, the alarms parameter. And in the alarms parameter, it gives back the effectively the alarm info that you provided, so how often you want it to fire, as well as the name of the alarm. So that's it. It's pretty simple. Joe, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, just a couple of quick notes. First, we should point out that there's actually no strict guarantee that the alarm will fire exactly when you scheduled it to.
Good
because
point.
Sometimes due to performance reasons, if there's a lot of alarms scheduled, for example, we may delay the alarm some arbitrary small amount of time so that alarms don't all pile up, all the alarm events don't pile up in the system.
Yep.
The other really cool thing I love about this API is that it works even when your app is not running.
Yeah.
So like you schedule an alarm and then the user closes your app and then the alarm comes along, your app will actually be woken up and told that the alarm fired. So, in past programming paradigms, sometimes developers would try to find a way to keep their app running all the time so that they could do some kind of polling or whatever. With using the Alarms API and some others that we have available as well, it makes it so you don't have to do that anymore. You can just schedule a periodic event. It says, you know what, regardless of whether my app is running or not, I need to know when this thing fires, and this is a really great utility for doing that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. Like in the past, you might have done things like set interval or set timeout to go and update.
Yeah.
That works, and it's functional, but it's a lot of code, and it's just more work than it's worth. With this,
and once again, it doesn't work when your app's not running, right? If your app gets terminated for some reason or whatever, it just that code just goes. The window goes away, your code goes away, right? So the Chrome Alarms API helps solve that problem.
Exactly. So I'm going to come out of my slides here, and let's just have a look at a demo that I've got here. So we'll take a look at the code first, because I think the code is most interesting. So there's a couple of things that I want to point out within the code. So within the manifest file, you need to ask for the alarms permission. You need to just say, hey, look, I want to be able to fire alarms. So relatively simple permission ask here, so I just said alarms. And then the way I designed this app, I wanted the alarms to be able to be handled whenever the app wasn't running. And this was something that, as Joe just mentioned, if you want the alarms to be handled when the app is not running, you need to put the event listener into the main JavaScript file, so into the main.js, into your place where you're listening for all of the events. So you can see here I've got my chrome.alarms on alarm .add event listener, and I'm just doing it as an inline function. So I say function alarm, looking for that alarm, and I'm just going to do a console log just because that way I can see what's happening. And in this particular case, I'm just going to throw up an old style WebKit notification. Really the better way to do this, and I threw this together in about 5 minutes earlier today, but the better way to do this would have been to use one of the new notification APIs, which we talked about last week, or maybe I guess it was the week before. One of the cool things about that is that you can use those really easily, and they just came out of experimental, so you can use those without the experimental flag. So then finally, we show our notification, so create notification, and I'm just using the alarm name because I just wanted something simple. And for the body of the message, I'm just going to stringify the object so that we can see what's going on, and then we show it. Within the actual app, if we have a look at the HTML for a sec, you can see it's pretty simple, right? I've just got a form where I take in the specific a name for the event, a time, and an add alarm, so that within the actual application code, I've got the add for time where I go get the date and time, or add for delay so that I can say, hey, I want this to fire in X many minutes. So let's take a quick look, and I'm going to set this guy for delay for 2 minutes and add alarm. So you notice that the time went away, so we've got this guy going. So in about 2 minutes, up in this upper right hand corner that you'll see, I think it's right above my head, right about there, we're going to see an alarm notification that'll pop up. We can also use the specific time. So I want to set this for 12. Let's set this for 12:15 p.m. and add alarm. So I've added that, and I had everything spit stuff out to the console so we could see what's going on. So we can see that there are alarms here that are available to us. So the first time when I clicked it, you can see, and let me just make this text a little bit bigger, you can see that we have all of our alarms, which I just used chrome.alarms.getAll, and then printed the output. So we've got our delay 1 along with the scheduled time. And the second time we did it, we've got for a specific time and the time that it's going to fire. So the scheduled time and the name of it. Now, I think I see a bug in my code here. I was playing with this a little bit earlier, and this has to be a double, and this happens to be a float. So we may end up having this guy not quite work. So we'll see what happens in a sec. I think I know why. All right. So the other thing that I want to have a look at is if we inspect the background page here, you can see that no events have been fired. When events get fired, we'll have that guy fire off. So if we go back and have a quick peek at my code, let's see. So we're doing our delay in minutes, and we're doing a parse int with the for delay, and that shouldn't be a, alarm fired, but we didn't get our notification popping up. So you can see that we got our delay popping up. But actually, this is maybe not what I was thinking it was. Joe, do you see anything with this?
Not right off the bat, I don't.
All right. So, all right. Well, we can see that the event fired, so that's the important thing.
That's the important part, exactly.
And the important part here is that when the alarm fires, it's firing off in the main event, so it's being handled in the main event. That means, like I said, you can have these events fire off, you can go get new data, you can pop up notifications, you can do anything that you need to do so that your users know what's going on and that your users know all the stuff that they need to know about, or that your app stays up to date. It's a really great way of caching data locally and caching stuff going on. So, Joe, anything you wanted to add?
Well, and of course the API gives you ways to see what alarms have been scheduled, clear any specific alarms, clear all the alarms. So it's a pretty full-featured API.
Yeah. All right. Well, so let's pop over to questions, and we can bring up the questions URL, because I know that we had a few questions already. And we'll take some of your questions. So you can ask your questions. The link is that way. There we go. Yeah, the link is down that way if you have questions that you want to ask about this. But the first question we'll take, can we use the API to remove cookies from other domains, either time-based or click-based removals or anything like that? And the answer to that is no.
No.
Joe, do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to remember that, so one of the security models that we built into Chrome apps is that cookies are all isolated from each other. So you can't just simply go poking into other cookies. So yeah, the short answer is no. There's an isolation model in place. You've only got access to any cookies that you've personally set, and not others. The whole cross-domain thing gets really hairy really quickly. So for security reasons, no.
Exactly. So this is not something that you're going to use for removing cookies or anything like that for other places. You might use it, if you want to remove your own cookies, but that's about it. So the second question here, are there any use cases for alarms that you feel have been underutilized for developers or that you'd like to see more of? And to be honest, I don't think we've seen many uses of this API yet. So
yeah, well, it's still relatively new.
Exactly.
And, we're actually kind of excited to see how it gets used, but I mean, I think there are some pretty usual suspects use cases, but I'm actually kind of excited to see what comes along that I hadn't thought of.
Yeah. Yeah, so like the main things that come to mind for me are things like caching and storing data. So for example, a news app or maybe a photos app might want to store the stuff that I'm going to look at every morning, so that as I'm on my way into work, or maybe I'm on the train or something like that, all of the data that I need is always up to date, so that I can be like, oh yeah, great, perfect. And maybe that's something that the user sets, and the user says, hey, I want to update this data every morning at this particular time. Or maybe
it also might be interesting to see how that data changes throughout the day, for example, right? Same snapshot of data, but across, every hour or so.
Exactly. The other thing that you could use it for is listening for and updating data from the user's side up to the server, because maybe it's something that the user's storing stuff locally. Think something like Google Docs, where as I'm typing and storing data locally, maybe I want to save that up to the cloud, and rather than push it up every every single keystroke or every bunch of keystrokes. You can have an alarm fire for every 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 20 minutes so that all the data gets stored up to the cloud. So again, pushing and pulling data is, I think, one of the primary things that it's going to get used for, but writing an alarm clock, right? Perfectly great example. And in fact,
anything that requires periodic code execution is a pretty good use case. So.
Exactly. So Gavin Good from Kingston wants to know, how do you turn alarms on and off? So the way that you turn an alarm on and off from a developer point of view is you add the alarm, and then you can do a clear alarm. So if we have a look at the API again, let me just pull that particular slide up, and let's see here. I think here we go. Yeah. So you can see here on this particular, there's a clear with a clear name. So you can provide a name of the alarm you want to clear. So that'll turn it off, and then you just then add a new one.
There's also a clear all. You can also clear. There's a clear all that will clear all of them out. So.
Exactly. As a user, you can't turn them off, but from a developer, you could. So if you want to be a good developer, it's probably a smart idea to allow the user some way of turning those off if it's not a core piece of functionality for your application, right? So if it's maybe just popping up an alert when there's new email or something like that, then that's something you want to give a choice to. Or maybe you want to allow the user to choose how often they want to poll. So instead of saying, hey, we're going to poll every 30 seconds or 90 seconds or minutes, you can definitely do that. All right. Let's see. Are there any other questions before we wrap up for today? I think that looks like all the questions. So Joe, thanks for joining me this morning.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks to everybody for tuning in. We actually are going to be back again tomorrow. We have a special edition of our Chrome apps, and we're actually going to be moving our show to Wednesdays now for a whole bunch of reasons. But so we hope you'll join us starting tomorrow, and we look forward to seeing you. All right. Well, thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.